In 1990, Crystal Palace embarked on what turned out to be the most successful league season in the club's history. With a free scoring Wright and Bright spearheading Steve Coppell's young and formidable side, a club who only 2 years earlier were playing in the second tier of English football remarkably finished the third best club in the land. However, it all ended in huge disappointment as Steve Coppell's men were denied European qualification at the very point it appeared they had clinched the prize they had been chasing all season. A decision taken at the final hour in a meeting room by football's governing bodies robbed Palace of a taste of European competition for the first time in their history. This is the story of the great UEFA U-turn.
UEFA imposes an indefinite ban on English clubs playing in Europe. Its president says the barbarism at Brussels required the stiffest penalty.
In the fallout of the Heysel disaster, all English clubs were banned from Europe for an indeterminate period of time. Despite some culpability lying with the authorities and crumbling state of the stadium, the blame for the incident was laid on the fans of Liverpool. For UEFA, this was the straw that broke the camel's back after years of crowd disorder by English hooligans in Europe. Liverpool was subject to a further 3-year suspension following the time when English clubs were allowed to re-enter European competitions. The club appealed the extra sanction, knowing that the financial ramifications of a long ban could be catastrophic for the club, but it was declined by UEFA. Jacques Georges steps down as UEFA president. Having overseen the Heysel disaster, his view of Liverpool supporters was not a positive one. In the wake of Hillsborough, he wrongly and insensitively accused Liverpool fans of acting like animals and drew parallels to what happened in Heysel. He later retracted his comments. At the 1990 conference, Swede Lennart Johansson is appointed new UEFA president. He marks his victory by declaring his wish for English clubs' ban to be lifted and participate in 3 European competitions next season, including Liverpool. It was a time of great change in European football. Johansson realised the best way to maximise revenue was to make sure the biggest clubs did well. The clubs with the largest fan bases could generate more television and sponsorship money. A similar plan and thought process was playing out in England, with Liverpool chairman Noel White and Arsenal's David Dein having private meetings with FA chairman Bert Milicic regarding plans to start a Super League. White, a successful businessman, joined Liverpool as a director first in 1986, brought into the club by chairman John Smith, keen to tap into White's business acumen. White took the lead in major ground improvements at Anfield, including plans to build a new centenary stand. After a 3-hour meeting in Geneva, UEFA decided to unconditionally lift the ban on English clubs. However, the question of the further 3-year ban imposed on Liverpool was not discussed. FA chairman Bert Milicic says if Liverpool qualify next season, an application will be made to UEFA for their ban to be reduced. Milicic had been FA chairman since 1981 and worked on FA committees for many years with the new Liverpool chairman Noel White. Milicic would have been well aware of Liverpool's desperation to end their extra 3-year ban. He also served on UEFA's executive committee and had a genuine friendship with Lennart Johansson. Milicic was perfectly placed to use his influence within to help push Liverpool's case forward to UEFA members. 1990-91 campaign, and Palace begin their second season back in the top flight. Buoyed by their FA Cup final appearance last term, they set off to a flyer, unbeaten in their first 10 games. By Christmas they sat in third place, a position they held until the end of the season 5 months later.
Crystal Palace consolidates their position of third in the First Division and also to Europe. They're still en route.
Now Humphrey! In to go! John Humphrey! Towards Mark Bright, played down for Andy Gray! That's number 3. Hodges. Across to Bright. There's another one! Mark Bright. Ian Wright still running.
Olby, and a terrific save by Martin.
It's in there.
The Eagles a comfortable third now behind Liverpool and Arsenal.
Steve Coppell is the Barclays Bank Manager of the Month for December, and surprisingly it's Steve's very first managerial award. So well done, Stevie Coppell.
Steve. That season, right from day one, we were winning games, and we just knew we had a good team, and we thought, you know, we can go a hell of a long way here, and we'd win game after game after game, and it was almost as if people were saying, oh, they'll trip up sooner or later, and we never did.
By March, the top 3 had pulled away from the rest of the division. Palace were within 5 points of the leaders. With Arsenal and Liverpool certain to finish in the top 3, it was presumed that due to Liverpool's European ban that still had 2 years to run, a third place finish would secure the one UEFA Cup spot available. Palace were in pole position.
But at the other end, Palace have a great chance of scoring and do. It's a goal for Crystal Palace. As the cross comes over towards Jeff Thomas, Lukic keeps it out, but it's a winner from Salako.
Crystal Palace now 12 points clear of Leeds United, surely finishing third in the First Division this season. Remarkable achievement.
News of a UEFA meeting to discuss the possibility of rescinding Liverpool's ban prompts a worried Ron Nodes to write to the FA demanding that Liverpool's ban be maintained for at least another season, as teams had been competing all year in the belief the ban would stand.
Crystal Palace as they bid to reach Europe next season.
Palace goes 7 points clear of 4th place Leeds with just 4 games left to go.
Crystal Palace 7 points clear in third. What a smashing season it's been for Steve Coppell, hasn't it? Because Europe may well beckon for them next season, and 7 points clear in third behind 2 illustrious clubs like Liverpool and like Arsenal. Smashing time for the Eagles.
A UEFA Cup place appears all but secured. UEFA meet in London to discuss the application to rescind Liverpool's 2-year European ban. On entering the meeting, UEFA President Johansson indicates Liverpool's return will be a formality. Liverpool have suffered enough. I know the overall opinion of the committee, and I have reason to believe they will take a positive attitude. FA Chairman Milicic adds, I don't think the Liverpool matter will take more than 5 minutes. It seems people's minds are already made up. And so it proved. Milicic and Johansson were successful in putting their case across to the rest of the committee to overturn the decision. Liverpool were reinstated to European competition 2 years early with immediate effect. Joy and relief for those at Anfield, but despair for a smaller, unfashionable club that didn't have the status, resources or power to do anything about it. Palace had held third spot for 5 months, but had their first opportunity to compete in Europe denied. and it proved to be calamitous for the club.
For that season not to culminate in a European place was just so cruel, and only we could see that. Only Palace fans could see it. Everyone else thought, oh, Liverpool back, great, fabulous, and we go, no, you know, we deserve to be there, we should be. And now you look at the league and the 7th go into Europe. We were 3rd and we never went into Europe, and you think, cruel.
And I'm, you know, not a cynic in any way, but I think with us finishing 3rd, I think the powers that be looked at it and thought, right, we'll let Liverpool back in, you know, and that seemed to us what had happened in that season. You know, I think we deserved to get into Europe after you know, a fantastic year, but that was taken away from us.
Everyone connected with Palace were understandably furious and made their anger clear after the home draw with Everton.
The Eagles' sad demise at the end of the league season, rather. Chances now of Europe surely ended. Palace 0, Everton 0, Julian Waters.
No real fluency in Palace's performance. The body blow to their UEFA Cup hopes has hit the players hard, and whilst the effort was there, the inspiration wasn't.
The FA have kicked us in the teeth after we had the carrot of a place in Europe dangled before us all season. This might have been something really special in the club's history. The top clubs will earn an awful lot of money, which gives them greater superiority in our domestic game. FA officials received a letter of protest from an angry Ron Nodes.
Chairman Ron Nodes, you've had 24 hours to reconsider the ramifications of that admission of Liverpool. What are your thoughts now?
I just think it's totally wrong. After we've played all but 4 of our fixtures for the entire season, as well as Leeds and Manchester City and Manchester United, we're going for that 3rd place because everyone believes it's a UEFA place. To have it denied just like that. The ban on Liverpool may as well have been removed last July as being removed in April. I think it's totally wrong. I do not believe the English FA have represented Crystal Palace's case at the UEFA meeting at all well, if at all.
And how would you think that missing out on Europe would affect your development of the club?
Well, I think the income levels, it's worth £1 million to be in Europe. That £1 million would have been spent on additional facilities here for our fans and also strengthening our team. We would have progressed in 12 months just by its admission. So I think we've lost about 12 months at least on our development, which is a tragedy.
Well, we were cheated, weren't we? We should have been in Europe.
Indeed.
And because of Liverpool and the chairman of the FA at that time, we were excluded. I mean, if we'd have been a more fashionable club, as a qualifying club for Europe who was denied access, if it had been Liverpool, they'd have invited them in first, wouldn't they? But no, we were cheated.
This is something that obviously still irks with you.
Yeah, it does.
I have never known the dressing room so quiet before or after a game. It's a big body blow.
And what about the feeling in the dressing room about the decision to admit Liverpool again? Might mean you might miss the UEFA Cup.
Well, no one's very happy about it, but I'm afraid that they're the rules and we have to abide by them.
The management, staff and supporters have been sat in 3rd place for I don't know how long. I've been asked thousands of times, what do I think of Europe next season? To which I've answered, let's get 3rd place first. The whole thing stinks, and I can't think of another body of incompetent, senile, decrepit old fogies who sit in judgment on our national game anywhere else in the world. Fans that wrote to UEFA in protest received replies stating that it was down to each country's FA to nominate clubs for the various competitions in Europe. Due to the 5-year hiatus, England did not have sufficient ranking points to be awarded 2 UEFA Cup spots. Koppel was upset at UEFA's decision to award 4 places in their competitions the next season to East Germany, a country which no longer existed, and condemned the FA for not contesting the decision. It just shows a manipulation of the governing bodies that is way outside our control. Who listens to Crystal Palace? The FA are supposedly representing football in this country, and yet they sit there passively. They don't want to rock the boat at the moment with the prospects of a Super League. I'm not having a go at Liverpool. It is the decision-making process and the chocolate soldiers at the FA. The real bone of contention is the timing of Liverpool's return, when there are 3 weeks of the season left. Palace have every right to feel cheated, but Liverpool have to pull, and it was one power game that Palace could not win. The following week, Palace travelled to Anfield 7 points behind Liverpool and with an outside chance of perhaps catching them for second place. They were soundly beaten 3-0, and the European dream was most definitely over. Liverpool begin their return to Europe at Anfield. The BBC create a new programme for the occasion as they follow their progress through the UEFA Cup. They were to go out at the quarter-final stage to Italian side Genoa. Ian Wright signs for Arsenal and signals the beginning of a dramatic fall for the Eagles. Within 19 months of Wright leaving, Palace were relegated as English football took its first steps into the newly formed Premier League that would bring enormous riches to the elite clubs in England.
When we finished third, we missed out on Europe, which should have been rightfully ours, which would have been the next step, I think. Not getting Europe, and then Ian Wright, in particular, you know, I would have to single him out, deciding that to satisfy his footballing ambitions, he had to go elsewhere. I think that was a signal for a lot of people that we touched the glass ceiling.
We were made to suffer, and we missed out because had we have had European football, that might have been enough to make some players stay. The chance to go to Arsenal was a big one for Ian, but perhaps if we'd been in Europe, he'd have wanted to stay, and similarly Jeff Thomas and Brighty. The unfortunate thing about that was that we had a really good manager in Steve Coppell. We had a great side at that time that really could have gone on to bigger and better things. If Europe was still in place, maybe we could have kept that team a bit longer.
The reasons why we didn't get into Europe and this, that and the other, I think that's probably a bigger reason why the club slowly sort of didn't achieve what we should have achieved, because I think that group of guys could have gone on with a couple more additions, gone on and even improved on what we did. As soon as we never qualified for Europe for political reasons more than anything, we knew the likes of Ian, who was just desperate to fulfil this dream of playing at a big club. You know, we've got to be honest and say that Crystal Palace weren't in that league of being in the top 6. But we always thought we had a potential of growing into that with what we had. But as soon as Ian went, I think that was the start of the decline, really, and I think it's very hard to fill them boots, and then other players started leaving, and then it was just soul destroying, to be honest.
If Brighty was going to be there, I was going to be there. Now, if we had European football challenging, then we've got no reason to leave. Yeah. Of course, the Arsenals and these of this world,
the big five,
they're going to start sniffing around in the top, because you know what I mean. But if we was in that, and then we had brought other players in, no reason to leave. Yeah. There was no reason to leave, because when I was going to leave, the chairman offered me double the money I was on to stay. But you know what I mean, the fact of the matter was...
He did?
Did I tell you that, Brighty?
No.
Well, we'd sort that out. We'd sort that out. But, well, he didn't. But he did.
Okay.
But anyway, the thing about it is, right? That son of a bitch. Leeds finished 4th when we finished 3rd. Now, we obviously better than Leeds. All they done, I think they bought Tony DeRigo and Rod Wallace. They won the championship the next year. So what does that say to you? How close we were to winning the championship. We could have done it.
We finished a good 3rd as well.
It was a comfortable
very good 3rd.
Comfortable 3rd.
Palace began a period of huge instability, yo-yoing between the 1st and 2nd tier and finally falling into administration 8 years later. The decision to prevent Palace going into Europe was to cost them dear. In the 7 years that England were not fully represented in Europe, many teams missed out on an unprecedented European campaign. Twice, league champions Everton missed out on 2 European Cup experiences. For teams such as Oxford United, Coventry City, Wimbledon and Luton Town, the exposure and financial reward would have been invaluable for their future. Instead, each club went through tough times subsequently. Oxford and Luton dropped through the divisions and were eventually relegated to non-league football. Coventry, like Palace, suffered administration but also relocation from their home and relegations right down to England's bottom tier. Wimbledon hit financial hardship and the club had to move to Milton Keynes to survive. Perhaps something as simple as a good cup run in a European competition may have changed the future for any one of those clubs. Liverpool are at home to Southampton in the Premier League's inaugural season. Noel White's brainchild, the Centenary Stand, is officially opened at Anfield, financed with the increased revenue generated from European football and the advent of the new Premier League. Liverpool invite a very special dignitary to open the new stand. UEFA President Lennart Johansson. Speaking that night, he said, "I was very happy when I was elected to see to it that English clubs and Liverpool especially were allowed back.